Keeping our network connected and dry has never been more important. On a recent survey, the quality delivery team identified the top 5 reasons why universal clip joints were open or wet. In this episode, we're going to run through these top 5 issues and how to avoid them. In at number 5, gel tape issues. When fitting the gel tape, wrap it around the port reducer evenly and without stretching, and ensure it is kept clean. It's best practice to have the end tail of the tape at the rear of the joint for small inline and cap end, or towards the centre of the clamp for large joints. This stops it unravelling and becoming trapped in the gasket seal. Even a gel tape fitted correctly during the construction of a joint will from time to time require replacing, depending on how many times a joint is entered and if it's contaminated upon opening. Replacement gel tape is readily available and should always be replaced if contaminated or damaged. At number 4, gasket seal issues. Gasket seals are one of the main key components of a joint. A missing or damaged gasket seal leads to instant joint failure. Likewise, a trapped, dirty, contaminated seal can also cause the joint to fail and become wet. Before closing a joint, the seal must be checked and cleaned. Old seals can be removed to be cleaned. Be careful not to stretch the gasket during cleaning, as it will not fit back into the joint correctly. Using a small flat screwdriver or the catch opening tool and a cloth, the mating channel can also be cleaned on both sides of the joint. New style retained gaskets can also be cleaned by partially removing and cleaning the contact surfaces, then placing back into the channel. If a gasket seal is damaged, then the joint body and gasket will need to be replaced. In at number 3, the wrong port reducer size used. When creating or remaking a joint, it is imperative that you use the provided measuring tool to identify which port reducer size must be used. Cable diameters cannot be assumed on pair count and past experience, as multiple manufacturers over the year has led to different cable diameters. All cables therefore must be measured. Wrapping adhesive tape around the cable to increase the size is strictly forbidden. Placing tape in the clamping or sealing area is also not permitted. For the large series joints, the correct process when trying to hold the cables in the port position whilst wrapping the gel tape is to apply a single layer of tape adhesive to the cables each side of the port reducers and not around the reducer itself, as this can mask the correct port size selection and also stray into the sealing areas. For L and M port reducers, there is a small lug either side, which is outside of the clamping area. If the measuring tape arrow falls on the line between the ports, then the smaller port size must always be selected. When entering an existing joint, it is your responsibility to check there are no loose cables upon closure. This is really simple, and a basic finger and thumb pull test will identify any loose cables. Second place in our top 5 is damage to the joint in the sealing areas. The main cause of this is simply because clips and branching plugs have been forced into place in the wrong orientation, or the clamps have been misaligned. To avoid this, please pay particular attention to the clamp alignment and orientation. For large cap end joints, there is an arrow on the clamp. This must be facing outside of the joint and placed down into the main body. Placing the largest cable in the bottom port and using straps cable fixing 1A to secure the cable each side of the joint makes closing and future entries far less likely to cause damage. For small inline and cap end joints, the two most common mistakes are not seating the outer clamp into the retainer and misalignment of the clamps around the port reducer. Remember, if clips are too tight to close, then check for trapped items or misalignments. Joints weren't manufactured to be difficult to close. This issue is simple to avoid but costly when it happens. A joint cannot simply be fixed, and the only option to resolve this is to replace it. This is an unnecessary cost, not just to the business but also to the environment. Finally, at number 1, the most common issue identified with open and wet joints is open and missing clips. Replacing a missing clip is possibly the fastest, cheapest and easiest of all the top 5 issues to resolve, and both small and large replacement clips are readily available from stores. Just one missing clip can lead to a wet joint. Please ensure all clips on any joints in the vicinity you're working are present and closed. And remember, to replace them you first need to be carrying them on your vehicle. Here's a list of the components and some of the key checks whilst working on universal clip joints. Joints installed and used correctly will remain reliable and serviceable for many years. See it, seal it, because copper matters.